We all know we should be saving more, but for whatever reason, we just don't do it. Hey, I'm Doug, a personal finance coach for dads with a master's in neuroscience and psychology, and I'm here to give you 5 psychological tips to help you double your savings in 2025. Let's get into this. Psychological trick number 1, get your emotions on board. Your dopamine system is designed to help you feel good when you move towards a goal and bad when you move away from a goal. This may surprise you, but if you don't tell your brain what your goal is, it has a hard time knowing when to feel good and when to feel bad, and instead just feels kind of anxious all the time. When you set a very clear goal, you get your brain on board and then help your emotions steer your behavior. And this is something that's overlooked in personal finance all the time. We are not just machines working out rational decisions all the time. Emotions play a huge role in how we deal with our personal finance. So do yourself a favor and get your emotions on your side by setting clear goals. The Stoics said it best when they said, with no port in mind, no wind is favorable. So the first thing we've got to do is choose a port, aka a goal. Now, if you've clicked on this video, then your goal is probably to double your savings. But I want you to be even more specific about this. What is that exact amount? The exact pound or dollar amount that you want to save? And by when do you want to save it? And having a deadline and an exact amount is important because that increases the chances of us achieving our goal. Here's why. When our goals or timelines are vague, it becomes too easy to deflect them. If we don't have an exact amount, it's easy to get to the end of the year and say, oh, that's kind of good. I just want to save more money. Very vague term. It's too easy to let yourself off the hook. When you don't set an exact timeline or a deadline, then it's easy to let these goals just roll on and on and on. So by the end of the year, you just say, oh, well, I'll do it next year. And you never actually get ahead. By giving yourself hard deadlines and hard exact numbers, it makes it more likely that you can achieve your goals. Now, if you did great last year and doubling your savings this year is going to be impossible, that's okay. Just choose an exact number. That's the important part, and give yourself an exact date, which we know is by the end of the year. Make sure you have that number. Make sure you commit to that deadline. Psychological trick number 2, one bite at a time. In Botswana, where I come from, there's a famous saying, which is, how do you eat an elephant? And the answer is one bite at a time. Now, how does this relate to your situation? Well, you have this magical figure from step number 1, which is an exact amount that you want to save by the end of the year. The next thing is to divide that number by 12 to make it far more manageable and far more easy to approach. It's way less intimidating in groups of 12 as opposed to one lump sum, like our elephant example. Dividing by 12, of course, is giving us a monthly figure to go for. And this does 2 things. It motivates us because it shows us a number that's far more achievable, and it also gives us a deadline that's much closer. The end of the year can just be far, far away. The end of the month, not so much. Now, if you want, you can chunk it up even further by dividing it into weeks or days. It's totally up to you. For example, £10,000 by the end of the year sounds like a lot. £833 a month sounds a little bit more achievable. £191 a week, again, maybe more achievable. Or £27.40 a day sounds really achievable. So it's up to you what bite size you want to use, whether it's daily, weekly, or monthly. But I would say less than a year is much better. Now, if you're on a set salary, this can be quite easy. You know how much is going to come out each month. But if you're on a variable income like myself, because I'm freelance, then there is a little trick that we can employ. For instance, if we use that 10K example again, I know that I need to save £833 a month. But January is a very slow month in stunt world. So maybe I can only save $633. That's okay. When things pick up, I will put in the extra £200 that I lost out on in January into the next month. So it'll be £1,033. That way it averages out to £833 a month, but it doesn't have to be £833 every month. This is a game changer if you're on variable income or a freelancer. Psychological trick number 3, reframe the cost of costs. So now you have the figure you need to save every month or potentially every day. The next thing I want you to do is rethink every purchase you make from now on and decide if it's worth it. So now, before you hit order complete on your delivery order of 5 Guys, double cheeseburger, obviously, you think, is this worth losing out on my financial freedom? Or could you just have a gourmet omelette at home? which is just 4 eggs with cheese, if you're asking. By doing this, you're taking advantage of a psychological phenomenon known as loss aversion. You see, humans are far more conscious about losing out on something than gaining something of the same value. So by positioning your delivery order as losing financial freedom, you make it less likely that you will do it, and you make it more likely that you'll start cracking some eggs and saving some money. Now, this works great as a general mental model, but if you want to get more hands-on and accurate with the savings and loss aversion, then you've got to use a budget. Budget's a great way of making sure that all your money is going to places that you really want it to go. Effectively seen if your money aligns with your values. In my opinion, someone's budget is a far better description of who they are than any bio they've ever written. If you want access to the easy-to-use budget that I use, then check the link below. It's there. Psychological trick number 4, ignore willpower. We assume that for habits to stick, we need lots of willpower. But research shows that's just not the case. And in fact, what's more likely to make a habit stick is how easy it is. So instead of having to grit your teeth to save money, we need to make it as easy as possible. Here's how. One way to do this is to automate it. Now, you already know the figure that you need to save every day, week, or month. You already know how to use loss aversion to make sure you save that money and don't spend it on Five Guys. But this next step is to take that money out of your account without thinking. So set up a direct debit to come out at the beginning of the month. By doing this, you don't have to rely on yourself to remember to do it, which can be a task, and no one likes tasks. You make it easy for yourself by setting this thing up once and letting it come out your account every single month. This also means that you don't have a chance to spend the money because you don't see the money. There's a concept in personal finance known as paying yourself first. Now, you may think you're going to miss that money, but due to a psychological phenomenon known as hedonic adaptation, the reality is you'll probably get used to it really quickly, like in 2 months. This is something that humans are very good at, adapting to new situations. In fact, it's kind of like our superpower. And when it comes to dads, we are particularly flexible. You will find a way. You'll either go out less, you'll spend less, or you'll earn more money. Whatever the situation is, you could probably cope. Just to be clear, the money that you are sending to your savings should be money that you have spare, not money that is used for your bills. This should be money that is discretionary. All right? Just a word of warning there. Now, the next question, of course, is, well, where do you send that money? Now, you could just send it to your savings account in your bank, but the reality is you'll probably get around 2.6% at most. It's rubbish. Instead, if you send it to a high-interest savings account, something like Monzo, Tide, Revolut, or one of my favorites, Chip, then you'll earn a lot more. In fact, money markets themselves will give you around 5.4%, which is roughly double what you're getting in your bank. So that's a nice, easy way to make sure that you are doubling your savings. Psychological trick number 5, watch the company you keep. Jim Rohn famously said that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Now, this was just based on his anecdotal evidence, his life. But subsequent studies have shown this to be true. It's a phenomenon known as social proof, one in which we mimic the actions of those we spend the most time with. Now, it's probably most noticeable in things like football matches or riots, where lovely everyday dads end up throwing rocks at the police. On the flip side, it could be seen when you go to your grandmother's house and now you suddenly don't swear or use a napkin like you do that all the time. This is sometimes referred to as herd mentality. Effectively, we gauge how appropriate our behavior is by those that are around us. So if we are around people that spend a lot of money, we will spend a lot of money. If we're around people that smoke a lot, we tend to smoke. Don't sleep on the fact that what the friends around you do impacts you greatly. And here's an example. Just a warning, there is going to be a little name drop coming up, so be aware. So, in the stunt world, I have lots of stunt friends, as you can imagine. I have a stunt friend called Bobby. Bobby doubles Chris Hemsworth, also known as Thor. Due to this, he is very successful and earns a lot of money. He also mixes with a lot of celebrities. So, if I want to go out for dinner with Bobby, then he wants to go to Bob Ricard or Nobu or Novikov. Five Guys doesn't quite cut it. So, if I hang with him, I'm likely to spend £200, not £20. That is the kind of impact company can have on you and your wallet. So if you want to save money, if you want to double your savings, you have to hang around people that like saving money, or at the very least, don't like spending lots of money. That's actually why I set up my dad's community, to get financially frugal and financially savvy dads together in one place to inspire one another to be financially free. So if you want to be less big baller Bobby and more financially free father, then check the link below. There's a link to my community.